The morning my parents announced they were handing over the family bakery to my younger sister, I was elbow deep in sourdough starter, the same starter my grandmother had kept alive for 43 years. My hands stopped moving. The kitchen went silent except for the hum of the ovens. My mother didn't even look at me when she said it. My father cleared his throat like he was about to deliver a business report. "My sister?" She smiled. Not a warm smile or an uncomfortable smile, a smile that said she'd been expecting this all along. I stood there in my flour-dusted apron, the one with my name embroidered on the pocket, the one I'd worn since I was 16 years old, and I realized something simple and devastating. I had spent 18 years baking my heart into this place, and they had already decided I didn't matter. My name is Rebecca Chen. I'm 34 years old, and for 18 years I was the backbone of Golden Harvest Bakery. Not just the head baker, not just the person who showed up at 3:30 every morning to start the bread. I was the one who knew every supplier's phone number by heart, the one who had memorized the quirks of each oven. The left one ran hot, the middle one had a cold spot in the back corner, the right one was perfect but temperamental about humidity. I was the one customers asked for by name, the one who remembered that Mrs. Patterson needed her daughter's birthday cake dairy-free, the one who knew that Mr. Kim always wanted extra cinnamon in his morning roll even though he never asked. I was the bakery, and my sister Melody, she was the daughter who went to business school, got her MBA, and hadn't touched a rolling pin since she was 12. My parents weren't cruel people. That's what made it worse. They weren't villains twirling mustaches and cackling about destroying my dreams. They were practical, methodical, and completely blind to anything that couldn't be quantified in a spreadsheet. "Melody understands modern business," my father said that morning, still not quite meeting my eyes. "Digital marketing, brand expansion, franchise potential, these are things we never learned." "You've done wonderful work," my mother added quickly, like she was applying a bandage to a gunshot wound. "You'll still be the head baker. Nothing changes in the kitchen." Nothing changes in the kitchen, like the kitchen was separate from the bakery, like what happened in one didn't affect the other, like I could keep making my grandmother's recipes while my sister turned the front of house into whatever Instagram-friendly nightmare she'd dreamed up in business school. Melody was leaning against the doorframe, arms crossed, watching me with that half-smile she'd perfected since childhood, the smile that said she'd already won and was just waiting for me to catch up. "Don't look so surprised, Beck," she said. "You had to know this was coming. You're a baker, I'm a businesswoman. It makes sense for everyone to work in their strengths." Her strengths. She'd spent exactly 3 summers working at Golden Harvest, and 2 of those she'd spent flirting with the delivery guy instead of learning the register. But she had the degree, she had the connections, and apparently that mattered more than 18 years of actual work. I didn't say anything. What was there to say? They'd already decided. The paperwork was probably already drawn up. My grandmother's bakery, the place she'd started with nothing but a rented oven and a dream, was being handed to someone who thought proofing was a typo. I just nodded, untied my apron, and walked out. Behind me, I heard my mother call my name. I didn't stop. The thing about being invisible for most of your life is that you learn to watch. You learn to listen. You notice things that other people miss because they're too busy being noticed themselves. I'd noticed a lot of things over the years. I'd noticed that our lease was coming up for renewal in 8 months, and that the landlord had been making noises about raising the rent significantly. I'd noticed that 3 of our key suppliers had been slowly transitioning their best ingredients to other clients who ordered more consistently and paid faster than my parents ever had. I'd noticed that the building 2 doors down from Golden Harvest had been vacant for 6 months, and the for-lease sign had grown dusty and desperate. And I'd noticed, quietly, carefully, without telling anyone, that I'd been saving money for 12 years. 20% of every paycheck deposited into an account my family didn't know existed. A nest egg I'd always told myself was for emergencies. This felt like an emergency. I didn't make any dramatic announcements. I didn't storm out in a blaze of righteous fury. I just started planning. The first call I made was to Margaret Holloway. She'd been our landlord's real estate agent for 15 years, and she'd always had a soft spot for the bakery, and for the cookies I slipped her every time she came by to check on the property. "The vacant space on Maple Street?" she said when I asked. That's been sitting empty forever. Owner's getting desperate. I bet I could get you a very favorable lease if you're serious. I was serious. The second call was to Thomas Park, our flour supplier. He'd worked with my grandmother back when Golden Harvest was just a dream and a handshake. His son ran the company now, but Thomas still remembered the old days. "Rebecca," he said warmly when he heard my voice. "It's been too long. How's the bakery?" "It's fine." I lied. "Listen, I'm thinking about starting something on my own. Nothing official yet, but if I did, would you be willing to work with me?" There was a pause. Then, "Your grandmother was the best baker I ever knew, and you're the only person who ever matched her. I'd be honored." The third call was to my grandmother's best friend, Helen, who still lived in the apartment above what used to be my grandmother's original location, the tiny storefront where Golden Harvest had begun before moving to its current, larger space. "Helen, I need to ask you something. Do you remember the recipes? The original ones? From before my parents changed anything?" She laughed, a warm sound that made my chest ache. "Sweetheart, I have them all. Your grandmother gave me copies before she passed. She always worried your parents would modernize the magic right out of them." I closed my eyes. "Can I have them?" "You can have everything," Helen said. "Lord knows you're the only one who deserves them." For the next 8 months, I lived a double life. During the day, I showed up at Golden Harvest like nothing had changed. I baked. I trained the new staff Melody hired. I answered questions about recipes and techniques and equipment. I smiled when customers asked how I was doing. I was the perfect employee. At night, I built my rebellion. The space on Maple Street needed work. A lot of work. The previous tenant had been a dry cleaner, and the whole place smelled like chemicals and regret. But the bones were good. The kitchen space was actually larger than Golden Harvest's, and most importantly, it was mine. I spent evenings scraping wallpaper, painting walls, installing equipment. Thomas connected me with a contractor who owed him a favor. Helen's nephew turned out to be an electrician, one of the delivery drivers from Golden Harvest, a guy named Marcus, who'd been quietly unhappy since Melody took over, offered to help with the heavy lifting in exchange for a job when I opened. "She fired 3 people last month," Marcus told me one night, wrestling a commercial refrigerator into place. "Said they weren't adapting to the new brand identity." Whatever the hell that means. I knew what it meant. Melody had been making changes, rapid, aggressive changes that made the business school professors proud and the customers confused. She'd redesigned the logo, stripped it of the warm, hand-drawn quality my grandmother had loved, and replaced it with something sleek and soulless. She'd overhauled the menu, replacing our best-selling items with trendy alternatives that photographed well but tasted like cardboard. She'd even changed the sourdough starter. That's when I knew she didn't understand anything. The sourdough starter my grandmother had cultivated for 43 years wasn't just yeast and flour. It was living history. Every loaf made from it carried the essence of every loaf before it. My grandmother used to say it was like the bakery had a soul, and the starter was its heartbeat. Melody threw it out, said it was inconsistent and hard to scale. She replaced it with commercial yeast. I rescued a portion of the original before she could destroy it completely. It lived in my refrigerator now, carefully tended, waiting for its new home. The day I handed in my resignation, Melody looked at me like I'd just announced I was moving to Mars. "You're quitting?" she said, genuine confusion in her voice. "But you're the head baker." "I know. We need you. The new menu launches next week. The photo shoot is scheduled for—" "I know," I repeated, "and I'm done." She stared at me for a long moment, then her expression shifted to something cold. "Fine. If you want to throw away a stable career, that's your choice. But don't expect to come crawling back when you realize how hard the real world is." I almost laughed. She thought I was running away. She had no idea I was running toward something. "I'll work out my 2 weeks," I said. "Don't bother. I'll have someone else trained by tomorrow." She wouldn't. She couldn't. But that was her problem now. I walked out of Golden Harvest for the last time, and I didn't look back. The sign went up 3 weeks later. Chen's original bakery recipes from the heart. Since 1981, I'd used my grandmother's name, her recipes, her philosophy, everything that Golden Harvest was supposed to be, before my parents commercialized it and Melody Instagramified it. The opening day was quiet. Just me, Marcus, and a young woman named June, who'd been one of the staff members Melody fired. We'd baked through the night, filling the cases with everything my grandmother had ever taught me. Sourdough loaves with crusts that crackled when you pressed them, croissants so flaky they left a trail of buttery debris, cinnamon rolls the size of your fist dripping with glaze, and the blueberry muffins. Mrs. Patterson's blueberry muffins, made from my grandmother's original recipe, the one my parents had changed to cut costs, the one Melody had replaced entirely with some gluten-free protein thing that tasted like sawdust. Mrs. Patterson was my first customer. She walked in at 6:02 a.m., took one look at the display case, and burst into tears. "Oh, Rebecca," she whispered, "this is exactly how I remember it." She bought 6 muffins. Then she called her sister, who called her book club, who called everyone they knew. By noon, we were sold out. Every last pastry, every loaf of bread. The coffee cake I'd made almost as an afterthought, using my grandmother's secret recipe that even my parents didn't know. Gone. June stared at the empty cases in disbelief. "What do we do now?" I smiled. "We bake more." What I didn't know was that word was spreading faster than I could have imagined. The customers weren't just coming because the food was good. They were coming because they remembered. They remembered my grandmother. They remembered the way Golden Harvest used to be before the optimization and the brand strategy and the franchise potential. They remembered warmth and quality and care, and they recognized it in my little shop, 2 doors down from the place that had lost its soul. 2 months in, a food blogger discovered us. She'd originally come to review Golden Harvest. Melody had been aggressively pursuing social media influencers, but she'd wandered down the street afterward and poked her head in our door. "Is it true," she asked, "that you use the same sourdough starter your grandmother started in 1981? "Not the same one," I said carefully. "She started that one. I saved a piece of it, but it's the direct descendant. Same culture, same lineage. Everything that starter ever learned is still in there." She wrote a piece about us. Then a food magazine picked it up. Then a morning news show called asking if they could do a segment. The headline, "The Secret Bakery That's Putting Corporate Competitors to Shame." They didn't name Golden Harvest. They didn't have to. Everyone knew. The phone call came on a Tuesday afternoon. I was elbow deep in dough, literally, kneading bread while June handled the register and Marcus managed the ovens. The lunch rush had just ended, and I was taking advantage of the quiet to prep for tomorrow. My phone buzzed. Melody. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. "What?" I said flatly. "We need to talk." Her voice was tight, controlled, the voice she used when she was trying very hard not to scream. "I'm busy. Rebecca, please, this is serious." Something in her tone made me pause. She sounded scared. 5 minutes, I said. "I'll call you back." I didn't call her back. She showed up at the bakery instead, 20 minutes later, looking nothing like the polished businesswoman who'd taken over Golden Harvest. Her hair was limp, her clothes were wrinkled, and her eyes had the hollow look of someone who hadn't slept in days. "Can we talk in private?" she asked. I led her to the small office in the back, really just a desk crammed into a storage room, and closed the door. "I need your help," she said immediately. I laughed. I couldn't help it. "You're joking." "I'm not." She sat down heavily in the only chair. "Golden Harvest is dying. The customers left. The suppliers are refusing to extend credit. Dad's threatening to declare bankruptcy. And it's all my fault." I should have felt vindicated. Part of me did. But mostly I just felt tired. "What exactly do you want from me?" She looked up, and for the first time in our entire lives, I saw something real in her eyes. Not the calculation, not the competition, just desperation. "Come back," she said. "Please. You can have whatever you want. Head baker, co-owner, I don't care. Just help me save it." For a moment, I actually considered it. The bakery was still my grandmother's legacy after all. The building, the name, the history, it still meant something to me. But then I remembered the sourdough starter she'd thrown away, the recipes she'd changed, the staff she'd fired, the customers she'd ignored. "No," I said. "Rebecca, you didn't want my help when I offered it. You didn't want my expertise or my knowledge or my 18 years of experience. You wanted a head baker who would shut up and do what she was told while you optimized the soul out of everything our grandmother built." "I was wrong," she whispered. "Yes, you were." I stood up. "And now you're going to have to live with that. Just like I had to live with being passed over for someone who thought proofing was a typo. That's not fair. Neither was giving you the bakery, but that happened anyway. I opened the door. I think you should leave. She didn't move for a moment. Then, slowly, she stood. At the door, she paused. Mom and Dad want to talk to you. They know where to find me. They're ashamed. They know they made a mistake. Good, maybe they'll learn something. Melody left. I went back to my bread. The conversation with my parents happened 3 weeks later. They came to the bakery during a quiet afternoon, hovering near the door like they weren't sure they were allowed inside. My mother cried. My father apologized, stiffly, awkwardly, but sincerely. They told me they'd been blinded by Melody's degrees and ambition, that they hadn't understood what I'd been building all those years, that they were sorry, so sorry. Please, could I forgive them? I served them coffee and my grandmother's apple crumb cake, the one she used to make for special occasions, the one my mother hadn't tasted in 15 years because my parents had cut it from the Golden Harvest menu. My mother took one bite and broke down completely. This is exactly how Mom used to make it, she sobbed. I know, I said. That's the point. We talked for 2 hours. About the bakery, about the family, about the things that should have been said years ago. By the end, we hadn't fixed everything. Some wounds don't heal that easily, but we'd made a start. Golden Harvest closed 6 months after I resigned. The building sat empty for a while, then was bought by a chain coffee shop. Melody took a marketing job in another city. My parents retired finally and moved to a smaller house closer to my bakery. Sometimes they help out. My father handles deliveries. My mother decorates cakes. They're not great at it. They're too practical, too focused on efficiency, but they're trying, and that means something. As for Chen's Original Bakery, we're expanding. Not the way Melody would have done it. No franchises, no brand partnerships, no Instagram influencer campaigns, just careful, sustainable growth. A second location in the next town over, run by Marcus and a team he trained himself. A wholesale operation supplying restaurants and cafes with our bread. A small teaching kitchen where I give classes on traditional baking techniques. Last month, a food magazine named us one of the top 10 bakeries in the state. The reviewer wrote, "In an age of corporate standardization, Chen's Original Bakery feels like coming home." That's exactly what I wanted. My grandmother used to say that a bakery is more than bread. It's the center of a community. The place where neighbors meet, where celebrations are marked, where grief is softened with something sweet and warm. You can't build that with spreadsheets and marketing strategies. You can only build it with time and care and love. Melody never understood that. My parents lost sight of it, and I almost let them convince me that their way was the only way. But I remembered. Every morning, I still arrive at 3:30. I still start with the sourdough. The same culture my grandmother started 43 years ago, the one I saved from Melody's efficiency purge. I still know every customer by name, remember their orders, ask about their families. The work is hard, the hours are brutal. Some days I'm so tired I can barely stand. But when Mrs. Patterson walks in every Saturday morning for her blueberry muffins and tells me they taste exactly like she remembers, it's worth everything. When the young bakers I've trained go on to open their own places and call to thank me for teaching them, it's worth everything. When I look around this bakery, my bakery, and see my grandmother's legacy not just preserved but flourishing, it's worth everything. Melody got the business. The name, the building, the paperwork that said she was the owner. But I got the recipes, the relationships, the culture, literally and figuratively. I got the soul of what my grandmother built, and in the end, that was all that mattered. Some people say the best revenge is success. I don't think of it as revenge. Revenge implies that I did this to hurt them. I didn't. I did this for me, for my grandmother, for the customers who remembered what a real bakery should feel like. My family's failure wasn't my goal. It was just the inevitable consequence of their choices. They chose wrong. I chose right. And the market, the community, made the final judgment. Now, every morning when I walk into Chen's original bakery, I pass by the empty storefront where Golden Harvest used to be. The chain coffee shop that replaced it is already struggling. Their pastries come frozen from a central kitchen. Their coffee tastes like disappointment. Sometimes I wonder if my parents ever look at it and think about what might have been, if they ever imagine an alternate timeline where they recognized what they had before they gave it away. But mostly, I don't think about them at all. I'm too busy baking. The story doesn't end with triumph, exactly. Life isn't that clean. My relationship with my parents is still complicated. My sister and I haven't spoken in 2 years. Some wounds don't heal just because you want them to. But here's what I know. I wake up every morning doing work that matters. I've built something real, something good, something that connects people and brings joy and honors the legacy of the woman who taught me everything I know, and I did it myself. Not because anyone gave me permission, not because anyone believed in me, not because the path was clear or the outcome was guaranteed. I did it because I refused to accept that their vision of my future was the only one possible. They saw a baker, someone to be managed, contained, kept in the kitchen while the real decisions happened elsewhere. I saw an entrepreneur, an artist, a keeper of traditions and builder of communities. I was right. Last week, a young woman came in asking about jobs. She was 22, fresh out of culinary school, and she reminded me so much of myself at that age that it hurt. "I want to learn from the best," she said. "Everyone says that's you." I hired her on the spot. Now she shows up at 3:30 every morning, just like I did 18 years ago at Golden Harvest. She asks questions constantly about technique, about ingredients, about the history behind each recipe. She treats the sourdough starter like the living thing it is. She understands that what we do here isn't just making food, it's preserving something precious. She's going to be amazing, and someday when she's ready, she'll go out and build something of her own. And someone will look at her the way customers look at me now and say, "This is exactly how I remember it." That's the real legacy, not buildings or business plans or brand strategies. People, teaching, carrying forward what matters. My grandmother knew that. She tried to teach my parents, but they forgot. She tried to teach Melody, but Melody never listened. She taught me. And I remember. So if you're reading this, if you're stuck in someone else's vision of your life, if you're being overlooked and undervalued, if you're watching someone else take credit for what you built, I want you to know something. You can leave. You can build something of your own. It will be hard. It will be scary. Some people will tell you you're making a mistake, that you should be grateful for what you have, that you're not qualified, that you'll fail. Don't listen. Listen to your grandmother instead. Listen to the wisdom that lives in your hands, in your heart, in the work you do every single day. Listen to the version of yourself that knows you're worth more than they're giving you, and then go prove it. The world is waiting for what you can create. All you have to do is start.